Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gold Dizzy back at you with another edition of Wrestling With. That's right, I'm finally back with another Wrestling With video. It's been so long, I know, guys, but I'm back. So, all I gotta say is, I hope you guys can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the video because I had a lot of fun doing the research on this particular topic, and I really hope I'm able to entertain you guys. So, let's get to it. Wrestling with family. Now, what exactly does family and wrestling have in common? Well, a lot more than you probably think because pro wrestling and family kind of go hand in hand. So let's get right to it. Let's think about back in the day of pro wrestling, 20, 30 years ago. We had a lot of territories around. We didn't just have TNA and WWE and ROH. We had territories. You had the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. You had World Class Championship Wrestling. You had All American Wrestling, Calgary Stampede Wrestling, USWA, so on and so forth. So many to talk about. Too many to mention. So, let's talk about how these territories were ran. Well, a lot of these territories were ran by families. Let's talk about probably the biggest wrestling family ever in pro wrestling. We all know the McMahon family. Now, the McMahon family has been in wrestling for years. I mean, years. But I'm just going to talk about the WWF real quick because Vince McMahon's father, Vince Sr., he is the guy responsible for running that organization. Now, Vince Jr. later on decided to purchase that organization from his father, and he did just that. He dropped the W, named it the World Wrestling Federation, and of course, we all know the rest is history. But the McMahon family, without them, Wrestling B would not be what it is today. Of course, McMahon family wasn't the only family involved in the territorial days. He also had the Von Erich family. That's right. They ran the World Class Championship Wrestling territory based out of Texas and those surrounding areas. Now, this was a great organization. I gotta say, this family produced a lot of great talent. Probably the most famous talent from this family is without a doubt the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich. He was actually the only one to make it to the WWF, and he was a great Intercontinental Champion. Now, the only downfall with this family is that they had a really high suicide rate in their family. That's right. Many of the brothers in this family committed suicide. Now, they were all involved in wrestling, and apparently they just couldn't take the pressures of it, the stress of it, and they couldn't really control their demons. So they capped themselves one way, shape, or another. And I know that's not funny to say, and I'm not trying to make it funny. However, it's just crazy to think that a whole family like this can really have that much suicide in it because it's just crazy to think about. But anyways, you had the Von Erichs in the WCCW days, and I thought they did a pretty damn good job. Now, the All American Wrestling Association, that's another territory from back in the day. They produced a lot of great wrestlers. Hulk Hogan came from there, Mean Gene, Sergeant Slaughter. Of course, they were ran by the Gagnes, Vern Gagne and Greg Gagne, father and son. Now, of course, another famous wrestling family, probably right under the McMahon family, or maybe above them, depending on who you are. You got the Hart family. They ran a nice little promotion out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, known as Calgary Stampede Wrestling. And these guys, or I should say this family, really, really knew what they were doing. Now, this video is all about family, of course, and I gotta say, the Hart family epitomized what it was like to be a tight-knit family because these guys literally ran the promotion out of their home. You had Stu and Helen Hart working their asses off to make ends meet with this whole promotion, and sometimes it worked well for them, sometimes it didn't. But they had a lot of kids. They had a lot of sons, and they had a few daughters. Now, the sons all got into wrestling, and of course, their most famous sons, Bret and Owen Hart. Of course, they went to the big leagues of the WWF. And of course, they had some daughters that I mentioned as well. Of course, those daughters, they didn't really get into wrestling as far as in-ring action is concerned. However, they did get involved with dating some wrestlers, and they went on to marry some as well. I know Diana Hart Smith, of course, married the British Bulldog, and of course, I believe Jim the Anvil Neidhart married one of the Hart daughters as well. Don't remember which one, but whatever. The fact of the matter is that the Hart family, they really did their thing when it came to just coming together as a family. Okay, enough about that. So, territories, of course, without families, a lot of those territories probably would not have been as successful as they have been. Now, let's talk about some first, second, and third generation wrestlers. That's right. Families produced high quality wrestlers because, each successful wrestling family has to have it start from somewhere, right? Right. So let's talk about one particular wrestling family who probably produced the most electrifying wrestler in sports entertainment. You have High Chief Peter Maivia, who was the father of Rocky Johnson and the grandfather of The Rock. You have Cowboy Bob Orton, who was the father of Randy Orton. Of course, you have the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase Sr., the father of Ted DiBiase Jr., and Brett DiBiase, who has not yet seen himself on WWE TV, but I'm sure he's going to get there. Of course, you have the Dusty Rhodes, the Rhodes family, I should say. Dusty Rhodes, the father of Dustin Rhodes. You guys know Dustin Rhodes better as Goldust. Then, of course, Cody Rhodes as well. There's so many families. Now, let me also add this, that there's so many families in pro wrestling that, I really cannot cover every family. So if I don't mention somebody that, you're really close to or you really like, then please feel free to add that in the comments below and let me know who I forgot. But yeah, it's not possible for me to mention everybody. And since we're talking about second and third generation wrestlers, why don't we talk about some current ones that are on the WWE roster as we speak right now. First off, we have second generation wrestler D.H. Smith, the son of Davey Boy Smith. Second generation wrestler Natalya Neidhart, daughter of Jim the Anvil Neidhart. We have second generation wrestlers Jimmy and Jay Uso, the sons of Rikishi. Third generation wrestler Chavo Guerrero, son of Chavo Sr. and grandson of Gory Guerrero. We got second generation wrestler Cody Rhodes, the son of Dusty Rhodes. And of course, second generation wrestler Goldust, the brother of Cody Rhodes, also the son of Dusty Rhodes. We also have second generation wrestler Ted DiBiase Jr., the son of Ted DiBiase Sr. And then last but not least, we have third generation wrestler Michael McGillicuddy, the son of Mr. Perfect, the grandson of Larry the Axe Hennig. And a little side note, you guys may or may not know this, but the reason Michael McGillicuddy is going by McGillicuddy and not Hennig is because, for one, he wants to make it on his own by himself without being referred to as his dad's son. But secondly, McGillicuddy is the maiden name of his mother. So I thought that was kind of cool when I found that out. Okay, so how about we talk about, I don't know, how about Hulk Hogan? Now, you're thinking, Hulk Hogan? What the hell does Hulk Hogan have to do with family? Well, what's Hulk Hogan's probably most famous catchphrase ever? Well, besides, the what you gonna do? Well, brother. I mean, he says brother to everybody. What you gonna do, brother? Hey, brother, how's it going, brother? I mean, he calls everybody brother. So it's like Hulk Hogan looks at everybody as his family, which is kind of cool. Or he's just using it to make money. Who knows? But Hulk Hogan, he had the catchphrase brother that he used throughout his entire career. Of course, he still uses it. After his prime, he decided to kind of take himself out of the wrestling spotlight, and he came out with a show on VH1 called Hogan Knows Best, a show all about his family. It was kind of like a spinoff of the Osbournes on MTV. Not as crazy, but it was a very entertaining show. It didn't last that many seasons, but it was a good show, and it really showcased his family, families that go through everyday normal things just like we do. Now, From that show, we got a spin-off show called Brooke Knows Best, and Brooke Hogan, of course, is Hulk Hogan's daughter. So, of course, that show didn't last long at all. But anyways, that's just another example of how, families in wrestling, they're just meant to be together. But families in wrestling, now, I really, like I said, I enjoyed looking up the research on this video because I came across something that I totally forgot about. And that is The Family Feud. Do you guys remember The Family Feud? I think that show's still on air. It's a game show that's been on since, I think, the 70s. Well, way back in the day, back in 1990, WCW was on Family Feud many times, actually. And I do remember watching this back in the day when it first came on. I'll never forget because I'm a big Sting fan. And, of course, Sting was on the show, and I thought that was just so awesome. But anyways, WCW took on Glow, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, in Family Feud back in 1990. You had Z-Man, you had Sting, Flying Brian, Brad Armstrong, and good old JR going up against Glow. And then, a year later, they were back again. You had this time Sid Vicious, Dutch Mantel, Kevin Nash, Tony Schiavone, and Kevin Sullivan going up against Glow again. You got to look it up on YouTube. If you haven't seen the WCW Family Feud clips off YouTube, it's hilarious. You got to watch it. But Family Feud, I mean, it doesn't get no more personable about families than Family Feud. So there you go. Now, earlier in the video, I was talking about rivalries between families. Brother versus brother, Bret versus Owen. Bret and Owen came from the Hart family, who was based out of Calgary. They got their start in Calgary Stampede Wrestling, but later on they went to WWF. And like I said, the WWF capitalized on a little feud with Bret and Owen. I mean, this is kind of the first that we've seen of brother versus brother in pro wrestling, and I think they did a great job because Bret and Owen, of course, they're fantastic in the wrestling ring. They work so well with one another that it's just natural chemistry. You can't really compare it to anything because it's just too awesome to compare it to. But Bret and Owen just had that natural chemistry in the ring, and they produced a lot of great high quality matches and a great feud. I mean, they really got their mom and dad involved in this feud to really make it that much more real. And of course, you can't forget about the Hardy Brothers. This is a more recent feud that we've seen in wrestling, Matt versus Jeff. Of course, now when you're talking about wrestling and family, you got to talk about wrestling fans, because a lot of us fans, we start watching wrestling because of our families. I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube about people, getting their start in pro wrestling. How did you would see those videos where they'd go, how did you get started into watching wrestling? And you'd hear a lot of people say, well, my brother introduced me, my uncle introduced me, my grandfather introduced me. It's just something that the family did as a kid, when I was a kid growing up. And I'm the same way. I watched wrestling with my grandmother when I was growing up. And she didn't really get me started into watching it, but it's something that we just started watching together. So there you go. I mean, wrestling brings families together. The fans and their families can get closer with one another. And also, you got to think about this whole community that we're in. The YWC. Now, just like real families, we love each other at times, we hate each other at times, we bicker, we fight, we argue, it's all one big happy family right here in the YWC. And we don't have to agree with everybody, but hell, we're still one big happy family, and that's what it's all about. We're one big community. So there we go, wrestling with family. What an amazing concept. And I had a lot of fun making this video. Let me know your thoughts about it. If you have any comments, please feel free to share those in the comments below. Well, this is Gold Izzy. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And that's it for now. Peace out.